I'm okay with intermittent fasting, but the most important rule during the reset isn't any fasting. The most important rule is hitting your calorie targets. So if you have to extend the fasting just to do that, that's the most important thing. Above all, during the reset is getting enough calories, because that's the whole point right now. We're trying to get our body out of starvation mode, and long fasting will prevent us from doing that. You guys are going to determine the speed at which you want to progress yourself from the very starting point of intermittent all the way to being able to do it 48 hours once per week. Some people go for 48 the very first moment they can. They're not in a reset. They try right away. Some people get there, some people can't. There's no right way or wrong way to do that. And obviously, the faster you progress yourself, the faster the results you're going to get. But it's not something you have to do.
The question is, with the reset on a 1200 calories, does that include the fasting for 2 days? Because I've never done that before.
So the first thing I was going to talk about, go ahead and mention it now. So the only modification to this entire program when you are in a reset is no long fasting. So there's the answer to the question. You won't be doing that until you're done with the reset. So I'm okay with intermittent fasting, but the most in the reset isn't any fasting. The most important rule is hitting your calorie targets. So if you have to extend the fasting just to do that, that's the most important thing. Above all, during the reset is getting enough calories, because that's the whole point right now. We're trying to get our body out of starvation mode, and long fasting will prevent us from doing that. So great question.
But since I'm
Sure.
is what happens if I eat over 1200 calories? What should I do the next day, or how does that play out?
Yeah, nothing per se. In theory, you could do a reset much faster, eat at your target calories, right? But here's what would happen if you did that. So the extreme example of eating too fast, eating too much too fast, I should say, you'll gain weight. That's what's going to happen. Now, one day, probably not, but everyone's body is different. So one of the main reasons we go slow and steady is because we have to give your body time to detect I'm no longer starving, and then slowly begin to increase the metabolism. So that's why we're very tedious about it. So great questions. Angie, go ahead.
I wanted to know, I'm also taking the AOD. So I should continue taking that even if I'm going to do a reset? Like just
Great question. So AOD is totally fine during the reset because it doesn't suppress your appetite. The only thing with AOD is it's pricey, as you probably know. So we're on a budget and we're trying to manage this to the best of our ability. You could wait on the AOD during the reset and then save it for afterwards. There is benefit to taking it during the reset because it works on the metabolism, making you more fat adapted. So it's always a good thing. But technically, you get more return on your investment with AOD after the reset. So like I said earlier, I want to save you guys as much money as I can, or at least be upfront with you. If money's no issue, then go for it. Use it because it's good, So
okay.
Fantastic. Okay, good. So this is the most important thing that we do, is getting you guys to the point where you can fast for 48 hours every single week. Now, that's a general template, and then we modify it per individual when we get there. So just keep that in mind. But we're going to shoot for 48 and kind of see how you do. Again, as a reminder, like we just talked about, if you are in a reset, we don't go past intermittent until we finish the reset. But here's how the progression works if you are not in a reset or you finish. So you're doing your intermittent fasting. This is your daily, your 8-hour eating window. 18-6 is the most popular way. That's my favorite way to do your intermittent fasting. Once you're ready to progress through that, the next target, which is stage 2, that's your 24-hour fasting. So this is usually dinner to dinner. Great. You're able to do that. And then you get to the point where you can do it twice in a single week with 3 days apart. So we're going to talk about speed of progression, but I'm just going through the stages. Once you're comfortable with that and you're ready for the next jump, that's when we get to the flow stage. This is the big one. This is where you go to bed. So for example, if you finish dinner on Tuesday night all the way to Wednesday night, this is the first time going to bed after not having eaten all day. It's always kind of a big leap for people. And then you wake up the next day. Once you can do that, Once you can do that, you are in the flow stage. Because you wake up in the morning, you're presumably in 34 hours, right? Territory already. You're not going to do that more than once a week. That would be too much. So keep that in mind. Once you can get to that stage, it is a once a week thing. And then all you're trying to do is get to 48. If you can get to 48 the very first time you do it, phenomenal. But don't stress if you can't get to 48 your first time. However many weeks it takes you to get to 48. Once you can get to 48, if we haven't needed to modify it, if there hasn't been something that's came up that causes to modify it, then you stick with 48 and you ride that till your weight loss goal. There's concepts called flow fasting variability, which you'll learn in the future. We switch it up every month or so, but that's your template. That's your template that you're revolving around, is a single 48-hour fast one time per week. The big takeaway here, guys, we're going to talk about food. We're going to talk about supplements in a second, but the big takeaway here is you guys are going to determine the speed at which you want to progress yourself from the very starting point of intermittent all the way to being able to do it 48 hours once per week. Some people go for 48 the very first moment they can. They're not in a reset. They try right away. Some people get there, some people can't. Other people, personality types, slow and steady, they're very systematic and structured, and it takes them 6 weeks to get there. There's no right way or wrong way to do that. And obviously, the faster you progress yourself, the faster the results you're going to get. But it's not something you have to do. So this is where personality traits can come in. Also, the two other variables that we're working with is, number one, you guys each have your own bodies, your own physiologies, your own amount of insulin resistance and inflammation, and you guys have a better idea than anyone else of how resistant your body's going to be. And then number two, you guys have your own mental sort of stress levels that you're dealing with. Some people are like, hey, I'm retired, I'm good to go. And other people are like, oh my God, my life is stressful, but I wanted to do this because I'm not waiting for my life to, and I respect the heck out of that. But if you are in a high level of stress in your life, then you probably shouldn't go so fast into it, because fasting is stressful. Not all stress is bad. We're going to talk about that here in a little bit, but stress can be good if it's controlled, but there is a concept of too much stress. So if you know you have a very stressful life, then I definitely wouldn't go dive right into a 48. I would take a little bit more time to progress yourself into it. Breaking the fast, little point that I'll note, you guys saw my section there. Breaking your long fast when you're actually doing the long fasting is kind of its own thing. As you read, you just take it easy. Usually a soup, a bone broth is my favorite way to long fast. And then for that 24-hour period after the 48, you're taking it easy, eating small meals and kind of increasing the size as you go, because it's a shock to your body for the first couple of weeks when you're breaking that long fast. It gets better at it. Your body will get better at breaking the fast, but it takes time. Diarrhea, you can always expect that like the first couple of weeks. And then as you become more of a veteran of these long fasting, you kind of want to use diarrhea as a benchmark of like, if I get it, that means I probably ate something too fast or too much of it for my body at that time. And then it kind of gives you an idea to scale it off. Okay, next week I'm going to be a little softer, maybe a little less, or I won't eat that food. A lot of people are sensitive to peppers after a long fast. Peppers throw me off. And I've been doing it always, for some reason. Well, not fasting, I'm good with peppers. So you kind of learn your body. Digestive enzymes, guys, are something that anybody can add and should add to their protocol if they're getting any sort of sulfur burps, indigestion, things like that. Also, if you only get those symptoms after breaking the fast, adding digestive enzymes can be very helpful too as well. So fantastic. Okay, good. So food, guys, is much easier than the fasting. No, this is the one thing that holistic and allopathic medicine actually agrees on, which is we gotta decrease our consumption of processed foods. And it sucks because we live in a world where, man, there's so much big money in front of us trying to get us to eat more processed food. It tastes delicious, it's more affordable, but that stuff is unfortunately one of the reasons that we're here right now is an excess consumption of processed food. So I'm not asking you guys to go 100% clean, because that's unsustainable. But I do want you to adhere to a 90-10 rule, which just means, as you read, let's try to go clean for 90% of the food. So at least 2 to 3 meals per week, depending how many meals you're eating per week, you can have as a cheat meal. And I would rather you guys give yourself a little bit of wiggle room, because I think that that's very realistic for just being sustainable. And then if you guys end up presenting with some particular issues where we can't be that liberal and we have to go real strict, well, then I'll cross that bridge with you guys when we get there. But it's kind of nice because the fasting does afford people, in most cases, much more liberty than they've noticed before. You're going to get away with being able to have some more comfort in your food and still lose weight, which is really awesome. So anti-processed food diet is what you can call this, and paleo Mediterranean are really good representations of that. But if there's other foreign foods that you guys are eating that don't fall in those categories, as long as it's not processed, I'm good with that. So just think fruits, vegetables, legumes, nuts. That's it. It's not, you know what I mean? Like, it's the list of processed foods is much longer. Now, the only modification to this is we will go keto, as you read. Not for life, because keto is also not sustainable. But if you guys are okay with it, 2 to 4 months is the amount that I'm going to ask you to do. So it's a little bit of a sacrifice, but this will really speed up the process of becoming insulin sensitive, aka reducing and healing insulin resistance alongside the fasting and everything else. I'm not worried about you guys getting a ketone monitor or anything like that, but as you read, 30 to 50 grams of net carbs per day is a good range. If you go over it occasionally, it's probably okay, but we want to just try to go as low carb as we can for this first phase to really speed up the recovery. We'll do that follow up in a couple months. And even if you're not at your weight loss goal yet, but things are going great, then we're going to test the waters out. We're going to introduce carbs later on. We're going to see how your body tolerates them. And usually by then you're surprised that you're able to eat more carbs and you're still losing weight, which is great. That's a good test of where your body's at. If we start eating carbs later and all of a sudden we're gaining weight or the results slow down, then we just kind of go back and say, okay, 2 more months keto. And then we keep kind of testing the waters. So it's really nice to be able to do this because we're learning just as much as you're learning about where your body's at. Okay, stress and sleep. So stress and sleep are their own categories, right? I talk about them later because I know there's a lot of information coming at you, and I don't expect you guys to be able to implement everything off the get-go. So even if you just focus on the first pillars and kind of came back to stress and sleep later, totally fine. But I kind of just want to touch on them a little bit now, and then we can talk more about them later. So stress in your life can contribute to some difficulties with weight loss, mainly causing cortisol spikes. So if you are dealing with some stress in your life, there's those stress supplements that I recommended called adaptogenic herbs. Some people will just say, there's your solution. Take those adaptogenic herbs for life. I don't like that idea. It's certainly better to take that than many other things for life, every day for life. But I would rather you take these adaptogenic herbs for a couple months while you work on some stress management techniques. That's the best thing you can do if you are dealing with stress. And there's so many different stress management techniques. So just pick one, like breath work, yoga, meditation, mindfulness. There's all these different stress management apps. So just pick one of them, implement it in your routine. Even just 5 minutes a day can make a big difference. I recommend, as part of your bedtime routine, doing the stress management technique because it also relaxes you and that helps with sleep too as well. And then quick note, if you do have stress in your life, try not to ignore the stressful situation itself. If you haven't already done this, handle the stress, reorganize it, whatever it is. Presumably you've already done that, but I just want to mention that too as well. Now, in the sleep side of things, every human on average should be getting about 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep. And so if your energy levels are not optimal, you have to assume sleep may be an issue. There's also other causes of low energy, like thyroid, testosterone, inflammation, but we want to optimize our sleep because optimizing our sleep is an investment in so many categories of life. So weight loss plateaus, you guys read about it, you understand what they are and you understand what causes them. And so now we want to make sure we're going to go through each of your guys' cases. So this is nice so we can kind of learn a lot together. We're trying to establish right now whether you are going to be doing a reset. So a reset, as you read, is how we fix the weight loss plateau. So we're going to go through it. If we decide that you are doing a reset, just keep in mind that it's like a it's like a program at the beginning of our overall program. So just really want to pay attention. If we say no resets needed, then great, we can skip that and then just continue on with everything else. So just want to be clear that the reset kind of has its own instructions. So if we do decide reset, really good idea to go back and rewatch that and reread that section, just so you're crystal clear on exactly what you're going to be doing during the reset.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Okay, on the shots, the peptides, you said that we should do it on the same date that we do our weigh-ins, right? To be consistent?
You don't have to, but it's just nice if you're going to start, you might as well get both of those habits in on the same day.
Okay, so what if I've already been on it? Is it okay to switch my date? How do I go about doing that then? Because so typically I do it on a Thursday right now, but I do plan on doing fasting, like what you said, like probably from a Monday to Wednesday, working up to that. So Tuesdays would be the best time to do that.
In the case of you already being on a weekly schedule, I'd rather not disrupt that if we don't need to. So the main thing for some people is if they lose some of the appetite suppression, it's not going to be until the last 2 days or so. So in your case, you're still doing the fast closer to injection date, so I wouldn't worry about it unless it bothers you having your weigh-in date and your injection date on different times of the week. If you're okay with that, I would rather you keep the pattern that you've already been doing for your injection. Good question, though. All right. So let's start with Martin. So Martin, I see that how did you start GLP-1s before us, Martin?
Yes.
Okay. How long have you been on a GLP-1 for?
2 months.
Which one and what dose?
It's the semaglutide and it's the 1 milligram, I think.
1 milligram. Yeah. So 0.25 would be usually the first, then 0.5, then 1. So it sounds about okay, cool. You've been on 1 for 2 months, or the whole thing has been 2 months?
Okay. So I've been on 3 months and I just started a month ago going to the 1 milligram.
And out of curiosity, did you go to 1 because you were like, man, I'm not really feeling much on 0.5, or did they just told you to go on 1 and you said, okay?
Kind of the second one, they were like, how's it going? I'm like, hey, it's all right. I could up the dose a little bit. And they went, okay.
So one thing, guys, and I know this is probably one of the reasons why you guys are here with me, is the idea of, building some independence in the future, setting yourselves up for success so you can wean off when you're ready. And so one overlying theme here, if you haven't kind of caught on already, is, we want to use the lowest dose possible to get the job done. Well, what does that mean, get the job done? Because that's kind of arbitrary. Yes, losing weight, but also implementing the FLOA protocol, the lifestyle interventions, because what's going to set us up for success in the future for medication independence is actually fixing with lifestyle the underlying issue that's causing this weight maintenance resistance to begin with, which is insulin resistance primarily, and also secondarily inflammation. And so that's why these medications are so powerful, is because they immediately do that. They reduce inflammation and they reduce insulin resistance. But when we wean off, we have to have something else in play, which is all the lifestyle. So just kind of wanted to touch on that for everybody here. So, okay. So you're 1 month into 1 milligram. I see that you're starting some healing peptides with us, which is awesome. That'll definitely help along with the GLP-1 for the injuries you have going on. Because you have all these injuries, I would also add 30 grams of collagen peptides, Martin, if you're not already.
Okay.
Everybody, by the way, could benefit from collagen peptides. There's really good data for skincare routines. It's probably the cheapest thing you can buy to have a powerful effect in healing your skin and giving you a more youthful appearance. There's actually really good data behind that. So collagen peptides, 30 grams. But for you, because you're doing these powerful peptides, I want to maximize your healing, Martin. Okay. So, and we got the AOD too as well. Do you happen to know, and it's okay if you've never counted calories, Martin, but do you happen to have any idea of how many calories you think you eat?
Yeah. So on a average basis day, I'm between 14 and 1800.
Okay. Okay. And that's not bad. I would say 14 on the lighter side. So you probably, and one more question, over the last 2 to 3 weeks, have you still been dropping weight pretty consistently, or do you know if you're in a plateau already?
So I've actually gained 2 pounds, but I've lost 5 inches.
Okay. Okay. And that's overall in the 3 months.
Yes.
Okay. And are you weight training too as well?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So most of my meals are protein shakes, lean chickens, vegetables. If I need a snack, it's strawberries or watermelon, things like that. Getting into the fibers.
And when did you start weight training?
About 4 months ago.
Okay. So what you probably suspect is what I also suspect, which is you're building muscle mass at the same time, but where you are going to count just to make sure we hit 1,800 calories. I want to see what happens to your weight at 1,800. And if everything's great, you're not gaining weight, then we'll try 2,000 and kind of see how high we can get you. You are going to have a bit of a faster metabolism, so let's kind of test the waters and see. So I would say in this place for you, we're going to say maybe a small reset, but we're going to confirm based off of what happens from week number 1.
Okay.
So go ahead and plan on texting us the update like you are in a reset, and we'll tell you yes or no, keep going with the reset, and we'll graduate you through that.
All right. Sounds good.
Awesome. Thank you, Martin.
Yep.
Okay, Christine. So never done a GLP-1 medication before. All right. So we're getting started for the first time with everything. Have you ever counted calories before, Christine?
Not really.
Totally okay. And trust me when I say this, counting calories sucks. Like I never, it's just not a sustainable thing. So, but hopefully you read that section where I talk about the calorie counting experiment. So since you've never counted before, I do want you to do it for just about 3 to 4 weeks. Also, because in this case, we're trying to figure out as we start this, are you under eating or not? If you've never taken an appetite suppressant, it's probably unlikely that you're under eating, but we don't know. I've seen some people come in where they're not even suppressed appetite and yet they're still under eating for some crazy reason, right? So we want to be certain. So in your case, you're going to start counting calories. Usually 3 or 4 days after counting, you should be able to look back and go, okay, this is pretty representative of how I've been eating. You need to establish that number, whatever it is, and then text us on the hotline, whether it's 1,200 or whether it's 1,600, whatever. Once you have an idea, hey, this is what I've been averaging since you started counting, let us know. And then based off that number, we'll be able to determine whether or not you should do a reset. Because I don't want to make you do it if you don't have to, but if you need to, and you'll feel really good. It'll really help the results.
Okay. No, I don't have any questions. I do. So when I'm doing the calories, so I was a vegetarian before, and I've been slowly introducing meat.
Good.
And it was always hard to get full with meat, so it always led me to carbs.
Makes sense.
So this is what's gonna be interesting and how I'm gonna adapt with the intake, because I don't eat a lot, but I probably eat more carbs than I do.
Yeah. So when you go from vegetarian or vegan food,
Yeah.
So this will be interesting. So we'll find out, and then maybe you don't need to do a reset, and we're good. But either way, we'll let you know.
Okay.
We're going to talk about supplements. There are so many supplements out there. So what I've tried to do, as you saw, is break it down into the bare minimum, and then everything else afterwards, as you saw, are very situational. So I'm going to click here, take it down to supplements. So you guys saw the protocol is right here. So I don't care whether you buy supplements. For me, that's not even what I'm concerned about. But if you guys want my recommended brands that I like, there's a direct link for you to purchase there. Your vitamin D, your fish oil, your 2 forms of magnesium. I do recommend extra magnesium because you're on a GLP-1 med and that slows down the movement. So extra magnesium, and then a multivitamin. This is a very basic list. I'm not saying this is everything, but this is sort of the bare bones minimum that I think every human needs to be on. There's an argument for so many more, and that's why I have so much more. And if you want to take more, it can only help you. right? Supplements are this awesome thing that is different from drugs, where with medications, you got to be careful. With supplements, they either help or they don't, right? But for the most part, they're not causing issues. So these other categories, at any point in the program, if you guys want to add them, if you have any questions, you can always ask at any point. Electrolytes are mandatory because we're fasting for 24 hours or longer. So make sure you don't forget this part. This is extra salt that you're going to be adding in addition to the electrolytes. You don't want to skip that. You fast 1 or 2 days without electrolytes and you'll feel it. Usually you feel tired, you get headaches, you get muscle cramps. So you definitely don't want to miss that. And then if you have an autoimmune disease, does anybody here have any sort of autoimmune disease or inflammatory condition? I don't think anybody did. Okay, good. So curcumin and resveratrol is still really good anti-inflammatory supplements. But if you're not autoimmune, then I wouldn't say it's mandatory, but still really good to consider. The rest of it, guys, if you are doing a reset, I want you to get 1 bottle of this one here called Thyroid C and B. So a lot of you guys are going to do a reset. So make sure you order this. Only need to do 1 bottle. Follow the protocol 2 times a day. 1 in the morning, and you can do, should we update this? Or 2 in the AM. So we only need 1 bottle of this if we're doing a reset. This is my favorite fiber supplement. If you think you're getting 20 to 30 different fruits, vegetables, you're totally fine, but most people aren't. So this is my favorite. I always take a scoop of this at the beginning of my eating windows. I do 2 scoops personally, but if you have sugar craving issues, these are some great herbs. If you know your gut can improve, this is a nice gut healing protocol. Same thing with the liver. We're going to talk about stress and sleep next. And then if you've had a gallbladder removed, this is some good things. This is called bile salts. Any questions on those supplements so far?
No.
Okay, good.
I do have a quick question.
Yeah.
The one of the supplements underneath the inflammation support supplements.
Yes.
I ordered those. I kind of got all of them, even the other ones under the support supplements.
Got it.
It says to take with food, but it also says take 2 times a day. So when you're fasting, how do you do that?
Yeah, so you're fasting, right? So we want to train your body to not need food with supplements. So a lot of times,
so I can still take it without
yes.
the food. Okay,
Yep.
that's what I'm wanting to know.
Okay, cool.
And the electrolytes, is that only on fasting days, or should you do a scoop every day?
Great question. I take electrolytes almost every day. I'm not going to say it's essential that you have to every day, but it's certainly, if you already have it, you can try it every day, see if you notice a difference. It's only mandatory technically on the 24-hour or 48-hour days, but some people do feel better when they take it every day. So you can definitely.
I've always put the pink Himalayan salt in my water.
Good.
When I drink water, because I drink so much of it. But electrolytes I've never done. So I just wasn't sure if that's something I should do every day or just when fasting.
Some people will say you should, and like I said, my philosophy is I'm going to try to minimize what and careful with my words, because I've noticed in the beginning years ago, I give people this long list and they're all essential, and all of a sudden you create anxiety for a lot of people because they're like, oh my God, that's so many. So now I'm like, hey, these are essential. These are really good, and so I would say electrolytes every day is really good, not necessarily mandatory.
Okay.
Okay, awesome. So the second category of supplements, guys, the appetite suppressing supplements. So some people do my program, although not as often lately anymore, without the medications. And so they are obviously taking advantage of every single appetite suppression supplement that we can. With you guys taking the GLP-1s, it's still a good idea. You don't have to, but I like the idea of you guys having, like, this is my favorite one, the Feel Great system. It is pricey, so I'm upfront about that, but you're not going to use it the same way they recommend. So if you do get yourself a packet of this, you can use it in multiple different fashions. Some people do take it every day because it allows them to not have to increase the dose of a GLP-1. So that's one option for you to consider. Another option is you can take it situationally on your long fasting days if you need it, because that's obviously going to be the hardest of the 7 days. Is Usually hours 18 to 24 is like the big hump, and then there's usually a second hump the next day. So it's nice to be able to have some appetite suppressants that you can use situationally. Then when you are starting to wean off in the future, decrease your dose. Taking these every day come in handy then. So you're never going to not use them at some point. And so it's a good idea and for what we see for you guys to have at least some of them, but it's your choice. My favorite is Feel Great System. Another one that I like is Calorie Curb. And then you even have a couple issues. Nicotine gum is something that a lot of people don't know. Nicotine in isolation is actually pretty good for you. Only contraindication for nicotine gum would be if you're a prior smoker. Again, I'm not saying you need that, but if you're curious, give it a shot.